Today, you and I are going to be comparing the GoPro Hero 10 against the iPhone 12 Pro. Both of these are amazing pieces of day-to-day camera technology, but which one is better for you if you wanted to create high-level video content across all your social media platforms? That's YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever. Let's find out. Now, both of these cameras are great for introductory level content creation and filmmaking, especially if you are someone that's on a budget. The GoPro Hero 10 in the accessories bundle comes in at around $600, while the iPhone 12 Pro with 128 gigabytes of storage comes in at around $1,000. Now, you may notice that the price is double with the iPhone, and that's because, well, your iPhone tends to also be your phone, you know, beep beep dial. As we go through the different comparison tests, I will be using the best settings from each camera for that specific test, and that's because that's how you would do it on an everyday basis since you have the option, right? And with the GoPro, I'm going to be using the linear lens mode, and that's because that'll give the closest camera look, that flat look, to the iPhone. So which one do you think is coming out of the GoPro and which one do you think is coming out of the iPhone? Because the one on the left is the GoPro 5.3K 24 FPS footage, and the one on the right is the iPhone 4K 24 FPS footage. Now, straight out of camera from both of these cameras, I think the image quality is amazing. You probably can't even tell much of a difference between the two, especially if you're watching this video on your phone. However, I still think the GoPro footage is slightly better. If you zoom in on the footage, you'll notice that the GoPro Hero 10 retains a lot more image quality, whereas the iPhone 12 Pro, it starts to break down a little bit, it gets grainy. Now, if you're editing high-level video content, let's say like an Instagram Reel or a TikTok, this can be a bit of a downfall for the iPhone 12 Pro, and that's because your editing is limited by how much quality you want to retain in your image. So the iPhone is going to struggle with that. However, the iPhone does tend to have better dynamic range straight out of camera. And dynamic range is simply just how well your camera balances highlights and shadows when it captures shots. Contrary to that, I do think the GoPro though has better colors. It just has a better visual texture in my opinion. While I was out here shooting, one thing that I realized that the iPhone clearly has over the GoPro is that the fact that you can zoom in and out on your subjects. With the GoPro, you have that wide view, but that's pretty much all you have. So keep that in mind. Next up is the slow motion test, and this is where you'll see me do some breakdancing, which I haven't done in a long time. Still surprised I could do that. But anyways, both of these cameras will give you up to 4K 60 FPS, meaning that you can slow down your footage up to 40%. Now, the GoPro Hero 10 will also give you 4K 120 FPS, which is basically just super slow motion. The results are kind of the same as the first video test. I like the look and the color out of the GoPro a lot better, especially if I'm going to be editing this footage later. However, other than that, I don't mind the iPhone 12 Pro at all. Another thing that I noticed while I was out here shooting is battery management. Now, on one battery, I think the iPhone lasts a little bit longer than the GoPro. However, with the GoPro, you can just bring multiple batteries and switch it in and out, whereas with the iPhone, one battery and you're done. You can bring a power bank, but that seems a lot more inconvenient compared to bringing just a bunch of batteries. I wanted to do a photo test between both of these cameras because I know you might want to incorporate photography into your content creation. The iPhone 12 Pro is a 12 megapixel camera. That's both the front camera and the back camera. The GoPro Hero 10 is a 23 megapixel camera. Now, what do these megapixels do for you? Basically, the more megapixels your camera has, the more information, the more quality your image is gonna have. Right? So at face value, the photos from both of these cameras, I think they're about the same. They both look amazing. They both look great. I would use both of them. However, for editing, heavy editing, simply because the GoPro has more information, because it has more megapixels, I would use that. And since this is a comparison video for content creation, of course, we have to do a vlogging test. And honestly, the best thing about both of these cameras is that the vlogging setup is insanely light. So after a long day, your arms are not gonna be dying. For vlogging, the GoPro Hero 10 has this inbuilt camera stabilization feature called Hypersmooth, and it is absolutely insane. You can tell from the footage that there's virtually no shakiness at all. If you're looking to experiment and create vlogging content, this is going to be an absolute blessing for you. The iPhone 12 Pro is doing a pretty good job as well. There is a little bit of jitteriness, but nothing you can't work with. Though take note with the iPhone, because I'm using the front end camera, I want the highest quality video out of the iPhone, I can't see what I'm recording because the screen is facing away from me. Now that is a little bit of an inconvenience, but it's no big deal. For the audio test, we're gonna be using the raw audios out of these cameras, and that's because that's how you're likely to start using it at first versus having a microphone.
So I don't know about you, but it is extremely hot out here. The only good thing about being out here right now is that the fact that this hyper smooth shows absolutely no shakiness. I can move it around, give you kind of like a spherical look at things, 360, but it's still stable, and I can tell because there's a front screen on the GoPro, which shows me what I'm looking at. So yeah, this GoPro hyper smooth, absolutely incredible. Now, as for the iPhone, I can't really tell what I'm recording because if you want the best quality out of this camera, you have to use the front camera. And so the screen is facing away from me. But I do think there's gonna be a little bit of shakiness because I know while the iPhone does have some sort of built-in stabilization, it's definitely gonna not be as good as the hyper smooth on the GoPro. But I feel pretty good about it, honestly. I think it's gonna do all right. So we'll see. I mean, these iPhones have crazy technology nowadays. So yeah.
I'm actually kind of surprised here because the iPhone 12 Pro had the better audio out of the two. The wind reduction and the noise reduction on the iPhone 12 Pro just helped a lot more than the GoPro when I was talking to you through it. Now, I would still recommend for either or at some point when you're a lot more comfortable with speaking to camera and whatnot to get a microphone because the video experience for your viewers is gonna get that much better with better audio. It is time for my favorite test, and that is the low light test. And we're gonna be using my setup for this situation because it is a low light scenario. Now you can tell that both of these cameras are having a little bit of a hard time dealing with the situation because they have small camera sensors, meaning that it's harder for them to retain quality in their images with less light. Now if I had to pick one, I would pick the GoPro because the iPhone just tends to completely deteriorate in these situations, but generally across the board, I would stay away from low light scenarios with both of these cameras. The conclusion that I've come to between both of these cameras is that you should probably be using the GoPro Hero 10, and that's simply because it retains a lot more image quality. So when you're creating your content and you're editing it, you have a lot more flexibility. Also, the GoPro just has so many different use cases with all the different mounts that come with it. You can just get really creative when you're building out your videos. However, I wouldn't count out the iPhone 12 Pro. If you have no other option, if you don't have the money to get the GoPro and all you have is your iPhone, this will get the job done. In fact, if it were me, no matter what phone you have in your pocket, iPhone 12 Pro or not, it's probably a pretty good camera already, and I would just use it in combination with the GoPro to create the best videos that I possibly could. Now that you've seen how the GoPro holds up next to an iPhone, how does it hold up next to a full-blown mirrorless camera, the Sony a7S III, $4,000? I'll leave that comparison for you right over here. Go ahead and check it out. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe because you know I'd love to have you, and I'll see you next time.